All right, Kyle here with Snowbike Nation. So I'm at Penco, and this is their dyno room. So underneath this cover here is the brand new mountaintop Snowbike. So we're super pumped. I'm waiting actually for Alan Mangum right now. We're gonna do a Zoom call, and so we'll be posting all of this stuff, and then we'll also be posting the audio. So you might be listening to this. So if you're listening to this, go watch it on YouTube. And anyways, this is gonna be super fun. So for those of you who don't know, Alan Mangum is the founder of Timber Sled, and he sold it to Polaris in 2015. So Timber Sled is, I mean, they're the biggest snow bike, company right now. They have the biggest market share. So this is huge news coming from Alan. I'm sending him the Zoom link. Boom, there we go. So he started this company a year and a half ago, and this is their product launch coming out September 6th, 2022. I haven't even seen this yet. I've seen pictures and I've seen the video on their website, but aside from that, this is going to be my first reaction to this, talking with Alan. So I'm going to basically be showing the kit and just talking about it. He's going to be giving all his, insight, info, why he created it, why he's doing what he's doing, and why he decided to start another snow bike company. So this is probably the biggest news ever in the snow bike world history since the snow bike started. If you're new to the snow bike scene and industry, I mean, there's a lot of snow bikes out there. There's like I said, Timber Sled, then you got Yeti, you got CMX. Who else? You got Rail now by WPS, and the Rail kit is the kind of used the old, the original design from Tumoto, but they tweaked it so it utilizes snow bike suspension. Alan's kit is completely different than all the ones I've seen. I'm gonna ask him about this, but looking at the suspension online, it looked a little bit like CMX. Did you notice that?
Well, and it also looks like you could pump it up.
No, you can.
Yeah,
so
one of his videos.
Yeah, so one of the things that Alan said is he uses the Fox Evo shocks. And I think they're the Evo shocks. And he said they're super, super, what's the word I'm looking for? Versatile. And rather than having a smaller kit, he was telling me you can just like adjust the air pressure and bring it down so when someone sits on it, it's going to be smaller, for shorter people. So I'm really curious how this is going to work. So through Penco, through our partnership with Penco, we're going to have at least one of these kits for people to come out, book a tour with us, spend a whole day on it if you want. I'm hoping that we'll have a couple more, so we'll see, to be announced. But the cool thing is you'll be able to come ride the all the kits, the Yeti. Oh, he's in it. Okay, cool. Here we go.
Okay. All right, cool.
Morning, Mike.
Mikey's here.
Good.
There's Mikey.
Hi, Kyle. How you doing?
What's up, Rush? We got Mikey and Matt. Matt's the video editor today, videographer.
Show me Mike. I need to know what he looks like. Oh, he's a slick looking guy.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Yeah, Mike's a handsome fella.
Right on. Oh.
Let's do it. All right. Well, let me start it out here, and I'll just do the quick introduction. So, all right, guys, Kyle here with Snowbike Nation, and I'm joined with Alan Mangum, founder of Timber Sled, and now founder of Mountaintop Snowbikes. So, pretty pumped. What is today? September 2nd. So we're 4 days before the official launch. This will be playing after the launch. So, pretty excited to see the kit and talk to Alan and get a bunch of good snow bike insight today on why this kit exists right now. So, all right, Mike, are you going to do okay, hold on. Let me do the flip around here. Actually, maybe we'll do, we'll do this. Matt's going to videotape that and I'll hold this so we can kind of just get both views. All right, go ahead. Let's see it.
Ready?
Oh my gosh, this thing's so ugly. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, dude. Wait a second.
So point it out. You're looking at a Yeti
Hold
or what?
on. Yeah, it's the Yeti, yeah. Wait a second here. You've got one dry. Okay, we'll get into all this. I'm like, what is going on with this?
Could they have put it out
So
on the
this
flat
is
floor?
what's that?
They need to put it out on a flat floor so we can look at it. We can see it.
Oh, like take it off the wheel there?
Yeah, take it off the wheel and set it on the ground.
Okay.
Put it on.
So, Alan, are these, you've got your own fork guards?
Yep.
Dude.
So all the kits come with their own fork guards. The fork guards are universal, so they mount to our fork clamp. They're not mounted to your motorcycle.
Badass. That is badass. Wow.
And
Yeah.
And there's a lot to say about those. So let me know when you want to talk about that specifically.
Dude. So let's maybe do here. Grab the front mic, and I'll grab this, and then we'll get it like right over here. Oh yeah, there we go. And then that way, yeah, and then I can hop on both sides as well. So real quick, before we actually get into the kit itself, tell us about the name Mountaintop and Transfer.
Okay, so Mountaintop, there's two reasons that this name was inspired. One is it inspired me many years ago. I have a holding company called Mountaintop Enterprise. So I have like some real estate and things that I own in that.
Right.
And so, but the name was stemmed from my love of being in the mountains, and there's no better place to be than on top. That's what I say. So
Copy that.
I love being in the mountains, and there's no more beautiful of a place than on top of a mountain. So that's how the name came up.
Agreed with you on there. Cool, man. Well, easy enough. Now Transfer.
So the name on this kit has changed quite a few times, and we couldn't come up with a unique enough name. And I won't go into how many names it had, but we wanted it a 3-letter, pronunciation, I guess, or acronym. And so Transfer just comes from I wouldn't say like transformation of a motorcycle, but transferring of weight and being light on the ski. It's kind of what comes to mind when you get into the details of it. It transfers a lot of things. So we call it Transfer. And so Transfer is the chassis name of that kit.
Okay.
So we'll have other models in the future that will also be on the Transfer chassis. So it's like saying Mountain Horse.
Got it.
Or Arrow, yeah. So it's that type of a name, or RMK. It's like that kind of a feel of a name.
It's the model name.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So I assume then there will be other models in the future.
Absolutely.
Copy. All right. Cool. Now that makes sense. No, I dig it, man. So tell us the origins then of this. Why did you decide to start another Snowbike company? And I guess before you get into this, so and maybe let's back up, talk about the sale, whatever you can talk about the sale of, when you did this whole deal with Polaris, when you did that, did you walk away thinking, oh, I'm gonna start another Snowbike company?
Absolutely not. To be honest with you, I didn't want to sell the company to begin with. To start with, the whole reason I do this is because this is my life. It's fun. It's fun. If I'm not having fun, I don't want to do it. So I've devoted my whole life to having fun, like you're trying to do. So when I sold the company, my dream as a kid was to be a snowmobile builder. I wanted to build custom snowmobiles. That's what I thought I was going to do. So I did. I built and sold, top of the line snowmobile products at Timber Sled 10 years prior to ever making the Snowbike. And we grew to be the largest aftermarket suspension manufacturer in the mountain segment of snowmobiling. That's how much product. We had a big staff, full machine shop, grew it up from, started it in my parents' garage when I was a young kid, or young guy. when Polaris came to me and wanted to, research the possibility of buying my company, I saw it as an opportunity to make my aftermarket company an OE manufacturer. Not very many aftermarket companies get to have that on their resume.
Yeah.
So that's the real reason. I wanted my company to be on top of innovation and everything that comes along with having a company. And I thought and it was, and Polaris was the right partner, because they're into new and different markets. That's really what they're looking for. So I mean, I don't know if it went exactly how we all planned, but they're doing a pretty good job. I think everybody wishes that they would come out with a dedicated vehicle, but nobody really understands the expense and resource behind that. And they look at it from a standpoint of, maybe it cuts into their market share of snowmobiling or snowmobiles. And so I think they just feel like the Snowbike kit is, it's a good fit. It's really hard to build something that works better than a dirt bike with a kit on it.
Yeah.
For the power to weight that you get out of that unit.
And to your point, it is interesting. I had this conversation a couple of years ago with someone at Timber Sled, and same thing. I was like, why is there not, a dedicated bike yet? Like, this seems so stupid. And what a lot of us don't realize, a lot of people don't understand is, what's that? Oh, because it's too hot in here. That's funny. The camera, my big camera just cut off because it's too hot. It doesn't matter. That's fine. But the interesting thing is, a lot of us, yeah, that works. A lot of us don't realize or understand not only the R&D, but the money and the legal and everything that goes along with creating an actual vehicle, as you know. And so I think, like you said, it's easy pumping out kits, right?
Well, I mean, it's the feasible thing right now, and we're utilizing generations of technology in these dirt bikes that we don't realize how good it really is.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, you can go strap a big engine in one of these chaff frames, and you got to pack a ton of gas, and you have a big engine and a big clutch system, and the thing just ends up being heavy, which is fine for the guy that makes one, but it's not fine for the average rider.
Right.
That needs it to be lightweight. You have to be able to tip it over and stand it back up. And, these bikes sip fuel. They're lightweight. They're super compact. They're great looking machines. They're really high end technology, even though they're so incredibly simple. Yeah, they work.
Yep.
So,
yeah, that makes sense.
So there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of legalities too that people don't understand either, like, EPA type legalities, safety legalities, sound legalities. And so, for these snow bikes, there's really no laws created for them, and the manufacturers, they come together as a team to create their laws and legalities of their vehicles so that the government doesn't do it for them. So they'd be responsible with that. So if Polaris is the only manufacturer of a snow bike, they might not get the participation of the other manufacturers to come in and help do this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It requires all of them, and it's not like one can create the law. It doesn't work that way. So again, I don't know all the details of that, but
yeah,
that is something to think about when you're trying to figure out why there's not a dedicated machine out, right now. Everybody thinks there should be, but there's not.
So segueing into then, so you sell Polaris. You said you didn't have the intention then, first of all, of wanting to sell it, but you did. So then walking away from that sale, what was your next steps from there?
Well, so the biggest thing when you sell a company like that, especially when it's something that you're so incredibly in love with, it's like marrying off your daughter. You no longer get to make the decisions, and I didn't really have a problem with that. I coped with the whole, being involved in the corporate world pretty well, I thought, but you don't get to do what you want to do anymore, and you don't make the decisions, and you don't come up with the money, and you can't make those decisions of what to do. They have a plan,
right?
And they have to go by that plan because that's how it's budgeted. That's not a bad thing. It's just, it's just how the corporate world works. But yeah, I sold off my baby, and I realized that it kind of stung for a long time. And I had a 5-year contract.
What was your involvement then? Because I know most of the times with that type of company, Alan, it's like, hey, you got to be involved for X amount of time, and obviously non-competes and whatever you can or can't talk about. But how did that look?
Well, so I had a contract, a 5-year working contract, and then I have a small amount of non-compete after that, providing I didn't still work there. So I fulfilled the contract. I had 1 year outstanding non-compete, and I had to outlive that. And so I didn't really start on this until 1 year after I left there. So in that time, I spent time sand duning. I'm into sand duning, high-powered sand cars. I was starting to build some suspension components for the car company of the car that I had, and wanted to help them, develop some new stuff. So I put a lot of time into that.
Yeah.
They're still kind of interested, but I kind of stopped short of finishing the project. And that's because I took interest in this and realized that this is what I should be doing. So I had a great time.
You have a little bit of a knack for it.
Yeah, just a little bit, but really it's my passion. And so I think about it all the time and come to realize that in my off time, I play with motorsports toys. So in the summer, I'm a side-by-side guy. And I don't ride dirt bikes, which is surprising.
I know. I found that so interesting that you don't like ride dirt bikes, because I feel like the majority of guys
I don't even own a dirt bike, so to speak. I own a lot of dirt bikes, but they're not for dirt. I won't even let them get dusty, because I like my bike clean. But anyway, I'm into snowmobiling, and so I do all forms of snowmobiling, from trail riding with my family to extreme mountain riding, and that's always been my passion, and is why I started timber sled to begin with. So and I love snow biking, and so I love snow biking more than I like snowmobiling, mostly because it's so much easier on my body. I go snowmobiling for a day with some friends, and I make this one little trail. I look at my GPS map, I make one little trail into the mountains. There's a ton of little squiggly lines all over the place, and then that same trail going back out. And then I go into my GPS in the same area, and I'm looking at my snow bike tracks, and there's like a circle on the map. And then my weekend before of snowmobiling just goes straight in, and I put a massive circle, and I'm like, that is way better. So I still do both. And that's partly my advantage, is I'm very good with snowmobiles and understand all of that. And I'm good with suspensions and stuff on side-by-sides, and all this plays a role in my ability to make snow bikes. So, and
for guys that are into the snow bikes, I think that's one of the biggest allures. I know for me is the ability to, rather than, I felt like when I snowmobile, now I snowmobile for 2 years, it was always picking my way into the zones to then play and ride. Now it's like everything's fun, everything's play. You're riding all day long, having a blast.
Yeah, not nearly the plan.
Yeah,
it's kind of just wing it all the time, and that's the thrill of it. And when we go on snow bike rides, when we go up and test product, we're not up there testing product like most guys are. You come riding with me, you're going on a 60-mile ride whether you want it or not. That's just how we ride. This is our fun. So we ride them the same way that our customers do. And I don't sit and pound bumps and stuff. I ride the bump trail as fast as my machine. You've ridden with me. I'm out of control. But we get to where we're going, and we go on these mountain rides, and you learn things about your product when you ride it that way. It's different than just strict product development type riding.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know we're going to do, and for everybody watching this now, we're going to do a longer form interview as well, guys. So look for that. We'll have a full interview with Alan podcast. I know everybody's just like dying to know more about this kit right now. So we'll segue into getting into the kit and you walking us through, Alan, why this kit exists right now, and then why you designed it the way you did, and kind of the things that you took away from, obviously you've gotten to ride every other kit out there at this point, just about. And so you're coming into this with not only your own knowledge of building snow bikes, but having the advantage of trying all these other kits and seeing what's working, what's not working, etc. So started this then last year, right? Tell us a little bit about the product development.
So I didn't really start working on the project until it was not this summer, but last summer.
Mm-hmm.
So the steps that it went in is I had a good plan in place. I basically built a hand-built prototype. That's what you use to figure out all your specs and measurements and how it needs to fit together. It's a little backwards of what most people do. Most people will engineer something and then try to build it or prototype it. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I prototype it without any drawings or CAD, and then we engineer it. So I had a bucket list of things that I wanted to achieve on this kit, and my biggest thing I wanted to achieve was improved ride and handling, and that means a lot of different things. But I wanted a more modern feel out of the kit as a whole. So everything on this thing is purpose built. I mean, it's got a reason why we're doing something a certain way. So any questions that come out, you're going to get my reason.
Right.
And the website, when it goes up, or I guess it's going to be already up, it does a great job of explaining each of the parts in it, like the rear suspension and the tunnel and the track and the ski and the spindle and the drive and all that stuff, the brake system. You'll understand why it is the way it is. And so another thing with me in particular is I like simple, functional engineering. So I like it to be simple. So simple is easy to work on. Mm-hmm. Simple typically looks good. Functional means it's built for a purpose to achieve a certain thing. And the end result is this. I mean, it's not a factory-made kit. It's really a pretty handcrafted product. It's built with CNC machines and tubing and parts, and the more you learn about it, the more you'll realize why it is this way. It's a tough, lightweight kit that is 100% function.
Well, and it, as you're talking about the simplicity of it, I'm just looking at the whole thing. I mean, it is super, super simple looking. I mean, obviously there's a ton of engineering that's went into this, but it doesn't look over complicated. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's more packaged in there than beneath the eye. So we'll get into that.
Yep. So you guys started, so tell us about your testing period then. Like when did you actually start testing this and really dialing in, real world stuff?
Yeah. So this is how it went. So I knew what I want out of a kit. I've been there. I've done that. I don't need to experiment. I have a bucket list of things that I can do. And when I envision them in my head of how to do them, then I do them and they typically work. So we built a hand-built prototype, hand-built, no engineering, all done on bandsaws, lathes, sanders, mills.
So did you guys do the CAD stuff before to kind of?
No.
That's awesome.
Nope. It's hand-built. When I mean hand-built, I mean, if I needed some measurement that I can't figure out on a calculator, then I have to draw a picture on a piece of paper.
That's awesome.
So once I get past that phase.
So Alan, why? Tell us, why do you find that that's the best way to do it for you?
For one, there's a bug and I'm chasing it around. It's just what I feel comfortable doing because I have so much experience doing it.
Yep.
Now, it's hard to build an assembly of parts in a computer and know that it visually looks right and works. I think I just lost my headset. Give me just a second.
Okay, I can still hear you.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yeah.
It said it was disconnected. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
We're good. So that's kind of why I do it that way. So when I do go into engineering, I already know my specs. I zoom right through the engineering stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's me and one other guy, Aaron Case, friend of mine, that we do the CAD, SolidWorks is how it's engineered, and we do that after the hand-built prototypes met its mark. So I spent the whole summer hand building this thing. I had it 100% complete, ready to ride by the time the snow came. But prior to that, as we were finishing it, we began the engineering.
Yeah.
So we probably started the engineering on it in, I don't know, like September of 21. So that would have been the beginning of last winter. Okay. So anyway, we engineered the kit, and while engineering, it takes time to have parts built. So I have pretty stinking good resources throughout the world to make things, obviously. I don't manufacture any parts myself. Everything is sourced. They're all pretty much Pacific Northwest made components. Everything's made right here in Montana and Idaho and Washington and Oregon and back east.
That's awesome.
So everything's American made by Americans, getting paid American wages.
That's awesome.
So I don't know what that means to most people. Everybody wants American made until they, find out how much that costs, and then they quickly change their mind.
Yeah.
But
Right.
whether they like it or not, this thing's handcrafted, made in America, and it's very purpose built. And it is very engineered. As you can tell, there's nothing funky about it. So yeah, did I answer that question correctly?
Yeah. Totally. I mean, there's no correct answer, right? It's just I'm curious as to your thought process when and again, I'm not an engineer, so I have no idea what goes into this other than I'm sure it's a lot of work. So I'm just thinking in my mind, oh, let's throw it on a computer and we'll draw it up and we'll do all these tests and blah blah blah. And so you're like literally, nope, I'm doing this like old school way. I mean,
well, so we can do all that, but I'm more like Jesse James. You tell him how to make a gas tank, he ain't gonna draw it up. He's just gonna make it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, that makes sense. So getting back to testing then. So yeah, tell us about what that process looked like.
So once you go on to the snow, there's a pile of things. It's almost overwhelming, the things that you have to do, change, fix. There's tuning, there's shock absorbers.
What was the time frame, Alan? Like when did you start doing this testing on the snow?
It was probably like middle of November
of 2021.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And we were on pre-production prototypes by Christmas.
Got it.
So
wow.
As we were tuning and refining the hand-built prototype, we were also engineering and having parts built for what we would call pre-production prototypes. So like we built one, and then by the end of, so that was in late December, we were writing both at that time, the hand-built prototype and the pre-production prototype. So the pre-production meaning it was that those parts were built at the places that are going to manufacture the parts.
Got it.
Jigs were being built, and so all these guys were pretty on board, with getting this job done. So they took it very seriously, and this is going to be a long relationship of work for all of them that are involved. But by the end of January, we were on a total of 5 pre-production prototypes with final refinements made to them.
So this is looking at this then here. I mean, this is one of them, right? Like this is 5
nope,
and 5.
Nope.
Oh,
that's just a pre-production.
Got it.
So we built 5 more. So
Copy.
So we have it's this one behind me that you see is one of the 5 prototypes, and that one that you see there is one of 5 pre-production kits.
Got it. Okay.
And so it's slightly different than production. Not functionally, there's just some cosmetic things in there that you'll bump into, but it doesn't affect anything and how it operates.
Basically, you'd never even know unless you knew what to look for.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I just told you what they are. It's little dumb things. And so functionality, it's 100%. So and so is this one behind me, which is a prototype.
Got it. So you guys, so you got a test all last winter.
Yeah, we rode all the way into June.
Cool.
We even validated and we completed the volume of validation hours that we needed to put on the machines.
What do you mean?
Well, so in validation is basically the time you spend literally just writing the crap out of something.
Yeah.
And documenting any issues that it has, and you make those final adjustments for production. So, you know, we wanted a total of 250 validation hours.
This is your guys' like standard. You wanted 250 hours.
Yeah, this is Rush and I riding every single day, 7 days a week. Well, more like 6 days a week because stuff won't run 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I know when I heard how many times you guys were up here riding, I was like, man, if I had run into you guys out there, Cat would have been out of the bag.
Well, yeah, you're not going to see us. We ride where it's secret.
Right. No, for sure.
Yeah, we had a series of new bikes that we were riding. We had our licks of, you know, blown up engines and everything else we had to deal with in that time. Yeah. I'm sure Rush told you about that story.
We'll definitely have to hear more.
We rode miles and miles on the gravel.
Yeah.
In the springtime, as you know, getting up to some of your zones or a lot of gravel and pavement. So we had really good ski testing, wheel testing. We had a variety of wheels and ski wheels and stuff that we were testing. And most of the time we would just result in just driving the ski on the gravel because that almost works better.
Yeah.
So this ski does go down the gravel pretty nice. Yeah, this ski,
I like just looking at it. It's funny. I even said, "Is that a Simmons ski?" Like looking at it now, I'm like, it looks nothing like a Simmons ski.
Yeah, I've just been asked that before, so I have to give them a little chuckle before I tell them more.
Yeah. So you guys rode the piss out of it then all last season, and I guess do you want to talk about any of that, working out the kinks there, or like things that you?
Well, it was pretty hassle free, so. I mean, this thing doesn't have any hereditary issues, like where you design something and it relies on, say, the bolt being tight, and so it's always trying to work a bolt loose or something.
Yeah, what does that mean, hereditary issues?
Just an issue that's built into its design that you don't know about.
Got it.
It's pretty free of issues. So it never broke on us. Yeah, we bent a rail and we, what did we do? We lost a clip on a master link and some dumb stuff. Cracked a tunnel once and realized how temperamental the tunnel was, and we cracked it because we left 2 bolts loose in the front of the tunnel, like on the frame, and that's all it took. And so we learned some tricks of, you know, how to keep things together through that process.
That makes sense. I mean, that's part of what you guys were doing, right? I mean, you're doing all the tests.
The brake system took on a lot of changes. We wanted a really stellar brake system that was a bit different than everybody else's.
Yeah. So why don't we'll just kind of get into it. I mean, since you're already kind of describing the stuff, do you want to start from the back or do you want to start from the front?
Well, let's start with the front.
Okay.
We'll start with the brake system because there's not a ton to say about that.
Okay.
It is a Hayes Dominion mountain bike brake system that has been modified for our kit. So there's like a fitting and a line and some stuff that had to be made special.
A mountain bike?
Yeah, it's a mountain bike brake.
Interesting. Yeah. Why did you guys end up doing that?
Well, you don't realize that tiny little brake is more powerful than the brake on about any other kit. It is a 1-finger lockup at any speed. It's incredible the strength of that thing.
Yeah, so this is the best looking brake lever I've seen out of any of the kits. So you said it's a Dominion, right?
So Hayes brakes. It's a very high end brake system. It's not like from Amazon kind of thing. It's a high end brake system. It's extremely adjustable in the lever. That little red thing is just so you don't pull it when you assemble it.
Oh, right.
So that just pops out of there. But the lever is extremely adjustable. You can adjust it in and out on the handlebar. but really it's designed to pull with 1 or 2 fingers, and it promotes you to pull with 1 finger because of its shape and because it's so strong. It stops it so good that you just keep your hands around your grip and
That's awesome.
glide it with 1 finger, and you just get that adjustment right where you want it, because it'll go dang near to the bar and as far out where you can't even hardly reach it. It's got that much adjustment.
Alan, while you're talking about this, because it's funny, a lot of people are like, oh, you don't need brakes on a snow bike, but I think anybody who rides, and particularly rides aggressively, I mean, they come in handy. You just got to know how to use them. You can't just lock them up going down the hill.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you can
know?
use them to your advantage, but you know, when you're backcountry riding, you don't use it a lot, but
Totally.
you use it a lot to come to a stop, and you use a lot to lock it up before you slide into a creek and around a tree. So yeah, there's 100 reasons. And so
Yeah.
that little, you see that plate on the side, the
Right
brake
here?
line is in a slot, so it's sandwiched
right
in the
there.
middle
I
of
see it.
the panel.
That's cool.
And so with that, you don't like have a cover or something that sticks out on the right hand side of the kit. It, you know, it stays all inside.
That's
So
super
so it's
cool.
protected, and you know, it's streamlined.
Yeah, you don't even notice it unless you really look here.
Yeah. And then the brake is a fully covered brake system. So I don't know if you can see that, but
Yeah, it's kind of hard
to stick the phone. So it's
see.
fully covered with a cover that runs, it's inside the track. So if the track bends and hits the brake system, it just hits the cover, you know, because it's only got like about 3/16 of an inch of clearance around the rubber belt.
Yeah. That's freaking sweet.
Yep. So you got consistent braking no matter your snow conditions or how cold it is.
Got it.
So while you're down there, let's start talking about the drive system.
Yeah, I'm like looking at this driver like, what the hell is this single? Yeah, this is awesome.
So that driver, we'll have a few kits going out with that driver, but we have to change it because there's a patent on that driver that we can't get around. So we determined that this is the smoothest drive axle or driver. That is a machine driver by Avid Products, the guys that build the wheels and drive wheels for snowmobiles.
Yeah, and for anybody who doesn't know, they're up here.
Yeah, so they're just in the flathead there. So right where you guys ride, he's a few minutes away from the South Fork.
So they're going to be they're manufacturing all of these for you.
Just the wheel.
Oh, just the wheel. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So, but we will be going eventually to 2 drivers that will run in the clips of the track. And so we had to go through 4 versions of that to get it as smooth as this. It was challenging to do 2 drivers that run in the clip that run as smooth as this drive wheel. And
this one you said has a patent on it right now. You can't get around.
Yeah.
Got it. So you'll have 1 on each. So you have 2 there. Okay.
Yeah. So there'll be about 60 units out there that'll have this drive wheel.
Got it.
But there's no drawback or there's no plus or minus to either one. This is just a cleaner looking setup.
Yeah, looks very clean. Yeah.
Yeah. But the other system looks cool too because it's a pretty cool looking driver. So it looks like a driver on a Yeti or a new timber sled.
Got it.
Can you run it pretty loose?
Matt was asking if you can run it real loose without skipping. I imagine so.
No, do not run. Do not run it. Yeah, you can run it loose. It's not going to skip, but do not run it loose. And we'll talk about that. Okay. So I want to get through the drive system.
Yeah.
So you see the sprocket down there? So that sprocket is on the inside of the side panel.
Yeah.
So we get a bunch of benefits by doing it this way. One of the big benefits is there's a lot less load on the drive axle because the drive sprocket is to the inside of the panel instead of a shaft sticking through a bearing.
Oh, okay.
So with that, we affix that aluminum hub to the hex axle, meaning you can't pull it off. It's pressed on.
Right.
So there's no like slip splines or anything that can come loose you would have a problem with aluminum axle. So it's basically one piece to the axle. And then
to replace it, you just replace the whole unit, that whole piece right there.
Oh, you can press it off and replace the axle.
Oh, okay.
But it allows us to run an aluminum axle. And that aluminum axle is considerably lighter than a steel axle. you can't run aluminum axles when you drive through a bearing because the shaft's not big enough. So that's an 1.25 inch drive axle out of aluminum, and it's about 20–30% lighter than a steel axle that's a smaller diameter than that.
You want to explain, Alan, and the only reason I know some of this is from being a helicopter pilot, but the big advantages of having a lighter axle just from a rotational mass standpoint.
Yeah, so you're looking for lightweight yet strong rotating parts, because rotating weight, the inertia that it takes to spin that weight, you know, it's like a light bicycle wheel. You can spin it and stop it with your hand, but you take a heavy motorcycle wheel and spin it and grab it with your hand, and it might hurt your hand because it's heavy. So rotating inertia is technically power to your track.
Right.
So not only does it spool up quicker, it spools down quicker, and it holds its power because it's not taking energy to keep weight turning.
Right. Okay.
So this
Great.
drive is very specifically designed to have less rotating inertia. So all of the components are very lightweight and engineered in a way where they can be lightweight but strong. So that's like that axle being aluminum. If we drove through this bearing and had a chain case on the outside of this, we wouldn't get away with running an aluminum axle, not without running some ginormous diameter ID bearing.
Because it'd be pulling on it?
Yeah, because you got a tiny little shaft sticking through a little 1-inch ID bearing.
Got it.
So the load is now between the two bearings versus the load being entirely on the outside of one bearing.
Right. That makes sense.
And then the sprockets, so you see how thin that sprocket is, like math-wise? So the sprocket is like a ring gear now. It bolts on, so you can change it. You can change the gearing, and we do have gearing options, different gears that can go on there to gear your machine differently. But that ring gear, it don't weigh anything because there's no mass to it. It's not a steel sprocket that has to go all the way down to 1 inch to fit onto a, like a spline.
Got it. Yeah, because
So
it just bolts right on there.
That part is, I don't know pound-wise how much lighter it is, but it's a lot lighter.
Yeah, so it's interesting, like looking at this, and it's hard to probably kind of see on here, but this one down here, I mean, literally you can just take it off by just popping these screws off. Am I right?
There's 6. So the sprocket fits over a concentric, like a wheel on a car. So that's what, centers it and keeps it true. And then it has 6 bolts around the perimeter that hold it on.
Got it.
And then the bearings that you see there, there's 2 bearings in there. So they're dual bearings on each side. So
one on this side, one on the other side?
Well, no, there's 2 bearings stacked in the bearing.
Oh,
there's a bearing in the middle of that hub.
Got it.
And now the hub don't turn on it. It's just, that's how it's designed. So it's dual axle bearings, and on a Snowbike, you get a lot of flex out of the panel. So the axle acts like a structural component in the tunnel.
Right.
And so anybody that runs a single bearing has bearing issues. Anybody that runs dual bearings does not have bearing issues. So these are dual bearings. So you have 2 bearings on the left, 2 bearings on the right. And I'll tell you, these bearings, I'm not sure how long they're going to last, but we have bikes with 80 hours on them, and the bearings feel exactly the same as a brand new bearing. If they weren't rusty and dirty, you would never know which one was which. So we expect the bearings to last the life of the kit.
Got it.
And all this will be explained pretty well on our website. We've done a good job of walking you through the design of each part, just so people understand what they're buying.
Yeah, so if people I want to get into the nitty gritty of it, they can go on there and check it out.
So let's talk about this hub next.
Okay.
So this hub has a bunch of purposes. To start with, it's designed like a 2-stroke engine case. It has 2 halves. So you see that bolt in the middle?
Yep.
It's got a
right
seam.
there.
So when you unbolt that, it comes apart like a motor, like a 2-stroke engine case.
Yeah.
And the bearings are inside.
That's cool. So they're all covered.
Yep. So there's 2 bearings inside that hub. The sprockets bolt on just like the bottom. It fits over a concentric on that aluminum hub, and then there's 6 bolts that hold the sprockets on and hold the hub together.
Okay.
So it doesn't rely on those 2 center bolts. But the advantage of this system is it's just that aluminum hub and those ring gear sprockets that are turning. You're not turning a jack shaft and a bunch of spacers and a bunch of bigger sprockets. So the rotating weight on this thing it's like, I don't know the exact weight, but it's up to a pound or pounds lighter than anything else as far as the rotating piece of it.
That's huge.
So inertia wise, again, it's very lightweight. There's no inertia. You're not spinning the bearings. You're just spinning the outside of the bearing. You're not spinning the inside of the bearing. And you're spinning the, lightweight aluminum hub and the ring gear sprockets. And that's all that's turning. The rest of it, the shaft inside and all the spacers, those are all fixed. They don't move. Yeah. Well,
that's not spinning at all. Yeah.
Well, okay. And if it did spin, it was because you had the bolts loose. On that,
right. But I guess what we're saying is this isn't spinning versus a lot of people are thinking, oh, that's spinning. Yeah. This is what's spinning.
That's what's spinning. Here. That's it. Yep.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Just the black part and the two gears.
That's crazy.
Okay. So that's that. Now the next beautiful thing about this hub is, and this is actually more its reason for being, is it has two-way adjustability. It adjusts front to back horizontally and up and down vertically. So that hub adjusts your engine chain and it adjusts your drive chain. And it does it in a vertical motion. So when the chains are on and you need to adjust your drive sprocket, you would turn those nuts where the stud is. So you'd have to take the nuts loose that hold it tight and then adjust the two nylock nuts to lift the axle. So
you'd loosen these.
Yep.
And then you use this to go up or down.
Yeah, and you got to adjust them evenly. So either count the number of threads or count the numbers of corners on your wrench that you turned it.
Right.
That's what I do. And so it lifts it up vertically and adjusts the drive chain. And then so to adjust the engine chain, you take that bigger bolt that you see on the inside next to the shock. Yep. Take that loose and the one on the outside. So the one on the tunnel.
This one?
Yep, that one. And then you see that other bolt up against the frame? No, you had it right.
Oh,
yeah, that right there. That pulls it back.
Oh, okay. Huh.
So here's the beauty of this system is the chains do not have any chain sliders or chain adjusters pushing on them. Both chains always run in a straight path.
Yeah.
They go straight down and straight back. They don't have no S turns in them.
Damn.
And on also the way this drive is positioned, the chains are very short. So, this has on average of a pound lighter worth of chain. It's 20 to 30 links shorter than any other kit.
This is shorter.
This one.
Yeah, it's only 48 links.
Oh, and what about this one?
That one's 58 links.
Okay. Yeah, what's it? Do you know what are the standards on the timber sleds? I'm trying to remember 70 or 50. What is it?
Well, they're 20 links more.
Oh, okay.
Between the two. So I think
it.
it's like 12 or something on one and like 8 on the other.
Oh, wow. So yeah, a total of 20 links. And you said that's about a pound and a half?
No, it's like maybe just under, it's like right at a pound, under a pound maybe.
Still, every little bit helps. So less rotational mass again.
So now you start looking at this drive and you realize why it is the way it is and why we're not doing a belt, because we get asked that a lot. Why aren't we going to do a belt? Well, here's another fact about this drive system and the reason that the tunnel is shaped the way it is. If you take the leading edge of this tunnel, so like where the snow would hit the front edge of the tunnel, like down there on the corner, right there at the front of the sticker.
Yep.
Well, if you measure from the side of that track to the outside of that tunnel, it's on average of 3/4 of an inch narrower than any other chain drive kit.
Got it.
It's actually narrow. So if you measure the overall width of this kit, it's the same width of a kit that has 11.5-inch wide track, and this has a 12-inch wide track.
Yeah, I was gonna say it barely is sticking out right here.
Barely sticking out.
Yeah, and for anyone who knows, I mean, I can tell you right now, I've broken multiple cases on my Yeti kits, because they stick out quite a bit, and so it's less stuff to get hit.
Well, and it's not dragging through the snow constantly, so it's more streamlined as it goes through the powder.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're side hilling on the left or the right, you get a very consistent feel left or right. As you knife through the snow.
That makes sense. That's such a small little thing that most people don't even think about, but obviously, you know, that was top of mind for you.
Yeah, and then on top of it, the chains are super reliable. You don't run the chains real tight on this kit. You can run them like with an inch of slack in them. They're probably tight right now.
Yeah,
if they set them up when they're new, but they you run them pretty loose. You let them be relaxed, and when they're loose, you find that you don't adjust the chains nearly as often. So if you adjust them kind of not tight, but like with a ½ inch of wiggle in them, you realize that like 3 rides later, you're readjusting the chain and you can't figure out why it's stretching. I still don't have that answer, but if you run them loose, it's like you never adjust them.
Got it.
So
Just keep it a
I
little
mean,
bit
most
loose.
people that have ridden a lot of snow bikes notice that probably, or relate to that.
Yep. Huh.
I noticed too that
Matt wanted to say something. What's that?
if you look at all the nuts and bolts, there's only like 2 or 3 different sizes. So like you'd only have to carry a couple different size wrenches.
Yeah.
So you need a 17 millimeter, a 13 millimeter, and a 4 millimeter Allen wrench. Those are only sizes you need.
Dude, that's freaking money. Yeah.
So we paid attention to all those little details, trying to get the right fasteners, because some bolts have different bolt head sizes and stuff. So we wanted to streamline the bolt configuration on it.
What's your take on using, you know, just a standard, you know, steel hardened bolt versus, you know, like titanium?
Well, whatever, I guess. If you want to spend as much as the kit costs on a bunch of bolts, you can do that.
Right. No, I'm just curious, like if you know, if as you went through this, you're like, hey, because it's already super light, making it lighter, does it make economical sense to run titanium, or is there any advantage from a strength, you know, standpoint?
Well, like that little nut on the end probably cost us 12 cents, and in titanium it's probably like $12.95.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So it's just a lot more expensive. Not really gaining much.
Not really gaining much. I mean, maybe someday we have a something that is extremely lightweight out of a titanium, but like I said, it doesn't really have any hereditary issues, so it doesn't rely too much on the strength of the bolts. So you could totally put titanium bolts in this and they would hold up.
Got it.
Okay, well, let's move on. I guess we'll talk about this frame, because you guys are pointing at it.
Well, this front is, I'm just looking at this, like trying to see how it's all, you know, moving here.
So I'll start off by saying, so the frame is chromoly steel, and those we call those frame legs, those pieces sticking off the front. Those are billet aluminum. That's what bolts to your motorcycle, right? Those bushings.
Yep.
Everything's adjustable, so you don't need a fit kit.
Well, you do need a fit kit, but the fit kit's not very elaborate. So the fit kit just consists of a sleeve, basically like a piece of tubing that's cut off the right length that matches the width of your swing arm. And so when you tighten up your swing arm bolt, it tightens up on those spacers and then pivots on those sleeves. Got it, right there. And so and you adjust the frame. You adjust the frame to align the engine chain. So those slide left to right each side.
Oh, these.
And so they're always adjusted to the inside of the frame, and that's what keeps the kit from shifting back and forth.
That's freaking slick. Wow. Yeah, it's literally just one nut, huh? One bolt.
So it fits in a concentric inside that frame, so it can't move, even if the bolt was loose. But that just holds it tight. And once you tighten those bolts, it's basically locked on there until you put it on a different bike.
Wow. That is I've never seen anything like that.
So the whole purpose of it is it just simplifies the fit kit. So there's a lot of bikes we haven't mounted to, right? Because we're new, and the only 2 measurements I need to fit any motorcycle is I need to know the eyelet width of the swing arm and the eyelet width of the shock where it bolts in the frame. With those 2 measurements, with those 2 measurements, I can make it fit whatever bike you have. I don't even care if it's a TM, a Beta, some 2-stroke, some old YZ. that we just will never work on.
That's awesome.
So it simplifies it. I can't say that it's like easier from an installation standpoint. It's just simpler from a parts perspective, especially for the dealers.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like, and especially since you guys are making everything, it's like, you know, some custom deal. It sounds like it wouldn't be this, you know, incredibly difficult thing to figure out.
Yeah. So that's our version of doing it. So let's move on to more of the frame. So this thing has in-frame suspension. We call this live strut suspension. So I know you don't have the strut rod sitting there hanging from it, so it's hard to see, but you see where the front bolt is there with the aluminum spaces on it? That's where your strut rod bolts.
Right.
And then when you push on the seat, it pushes on that bolt or where those spacers are, which then rotates this linkage bracket.
Yep.
That drives that shock at a 4-to-1 ratio. So for every
go ahead.
So ½ inch of movement in the strut rod is 2 inches of movement in the shock.
Wow.
So it's kind of like a TSS or a soft strut, but it's true dampened, very controlled feel, and it's a calibration between it and the rear suspension that makes this thing ride like it does. And so that shock is extremely adjustable. So for a 200-pound rider, we only run 150 PSI on that shock, and it has a range of 50 or 100 or whatever you want to call it. So 50 all the way up to 300. And so if you adjust it by 20 pounds, it's a pretty large incremental change. So you have a light rider, say they're 150 pounds, you know, you go down to like 120 pounds in that shock, and it suddenly gives them the ride quality. Or you got a big guy, you go up to 200 pounds, you can put a 275-pound guy on it, and you want to go to 250 pounds or even 300, it probably won't even move. It'd be like riding a solid strut.
Yeah. That's awesome especially from like a fleet, like a operator standpoint, because I mean, I'm obviously have a lot of different people that I'm taking, and in a minute you can just adjust this real fast. And
well, so another cool thing about it, there's one more cool thing. It has a negative spring inside the shock. So when you air it down to a certain point, it's going to lower the bike down all by itself. So if you have a lightweight rider or a girl that's not really tall and she wants to be able to touch the ground, you could air this shock down just simply to lower the bike for her.
Wow. And then from the standpoint of, I mean, it's going to lower it because it's going to compress, but what about, you know, now that you're using less travel, right?
It'll have less travel, but it'll have up travel and it'll have down travel. So it'll be like suspension sag at that point.
Got it.
It's still suspension. It's still dampening, but depending on what the bike does. So if you go off a jump, you know, it's going to extend and then compress more. And then it technically won't bottom out because it has, you know, a Fox air, it's called airlock. So you can't bottom it out. I mean, you could have 50 pounds of air and it won't bottom out. What you might end up doing is it travels down so far that your exhaust pipe hits the frame or something.
Got it.
So as long as, if you do have it aired way down to lower the bike down, I mean, you wouldn't want a big guy to jump on it and go send it.
You got a smaller person anyway, so.
Yeah.
That's freaking sweet. So I mean, talk about this, your whole linkage system here.
So again, linkage activated. All it's designed to do is to relieve load on the shock. So you get more shock travel than you have strut rod movement.
Got it.
So a ½ inch of movement in the strut rod, meaning so the kit lifts up to basically try to shorten the strut rod a ½ of an inch. You're going to get 2 inches of stroke in that shock.
Damn,
it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's a 4-to-1 ratio.
And this is going to come installed in the kit just like this.
Yep, that's how it comes.
Cool.
And then the strut rod is it has a right and left hand thread, so it's pretty easy to tune the strut rod length just by cracking the nuts loose and adjusting it while the bike sits on the ground.
Yep, pretty standard. That's awesome. Hell yeah. Cool. What next? You want to talk about this here?
Okay, so we'll just briefly hit on the design of the frame. So
Yeah.
chromoly frame, we don't talk about it too much. The reason we do steel instead of like billet aluminum or something is this is a very streamlined frame. And so this frame fits on, and this suspension cycles on every bike with the stock airbox. So you're not obligated to take the stock airbox out.
That's cool.
And what a lot of guys are doing is leaving the airbox in and just pulling the front out and putting like an Air Force Velocity intake on. But you still get to keep the the airbox portion of in the bike.
Yep.
So that makes it easier for putting it back the dirt if that's what you do. But more importantly, it just stops spraying and blowing snow from getting in all your electronics and air intake and everything. So
that's awesome.
So that's kind of why the frame is very rigid. It's super strong because it's chromoly. It's very streamlined because it's steel. You don't have to have aluminum that's much bigger and extremely flexible.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that it's a triangulated design, so it's extremely rigid.
And it looks like it's just
design.
one piece.
Yeah, it's
one solid piece. Yeah.
That's well, it's
awesome.
welded together. It's a bunch of pieces.
Right. But I mean, it's not. Yeah, you don't have the separate pieces that are, bolting together.
Yeah. So I won't stick on that. I guess let's just talk about the tunnel. So the tunnel is aluminum. Pretty basic tunnel compared to anything else out there. It's got a really streamlined shape. It's 3/16 aluminum, so 60/61. It's super strong, easy to work on. Tunnel. The tunnel top is much thinner to be lightweight, and you'll see some holes in it. And we do have some accessories that are going to be coming out that will be for like in the frame. Like the frame will have a bag that we have custom made. You'll see a bracket in that frame. Yeah, right there. So we have a custom bag that's fitting in there, and it's a nice size bag, and it fits in the back 2 bolts as well. That's how it's held on.
Right there.
We'll have a gas rack system that'll be universal to any gas can. And it'll be a Snowbike specific thing. So you'll be able to buy this gas rack, and it doesn't matter if you're using an LC can or a Mountain Addiction can or a Tough Chug or whatever you have, you'll be able to mount this kit on, and it comes with a pad, some brackets, and a stellar strap that just locks that sucker on.
Nice.
We'll have a tunnel bag. So that's all designed to fit on the top of this tunnel. And then moving to the back, you'll see that the part that says mountaintop on it, that serves a bunch of purposes. So that's a prototype. Well, not a prototype. That's the pre-production. So the production won't say Snowbike on it because we had to get rid of that. And
you had to get rid of that?
Yeah, we had to because of some rivet movement things.
Oh,
that we did.
They're going to say another patent thing or something.
No, but it's most importantly, it's a vibration damper. So without that, there's too much vibration in the top of these tunnels, especially on KTM bikes because they vibrate.
You're saying this whole piece here is a vibration dampener?
Yep, that's what it's designed to do. It absorbs vibration. Without it, you would crack the tunnel out in one ride.
What?
Yeah, all the kits have them. So it's just nobody's ever said what they're for.
Yeah.
There could be a reinforcement bracket, I guess. Spreads the load out. And so now our bumper ties into that, as you can see, and then it ties into the side of the tunnel. So the bumper creates the whole structure for the back of the tunnel. And then of course the bumper is extremely ergonomic. It sticks up and out at a 45-degree angle. And that's something I played with, trying to get the shape of that thing right. And so it's comfortable in your hand. So when you pull it back, you can balance the bike really good.
Well, and I liked it. It seems like the snow is going to shed off of this very easily. A lot of people don't realize until you get out there and your freaking snow bike is stuck way, way deep.
Well, it keeps the snow blowing up on the tunnel because it acts like a bit of a snow flap.
Oh.
Yeah, so it stops the blowing snow. It does shed the snow nice, but it also gives it a finished look. Gives it that spoiler. The spoiler look is what we're looking for.
Yeah, that looks pretty badass. That's sweet. Well,
so hang on just a second. I need to chat with somebody real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
I'm gonna record here. Okay, cool. All right, go ahead, Alan.
Oh yeah, that's good. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the rear suspension.
Yeah.
All right. So this suspension, I know everybody's having a hard time figuring out this suspension. What's going on here? It really isn't that complicated, even though they can't figure out how it works. So hang on just a second real quick.
We were just gonna activate it while you were talking too. That way we can kind of see how it actually is working.
Yeah. So let me just start from front to back. So the front track shock pushes on the suspension arm and works the same as any other snow bike or snowmobile suspension. Right? See how it's mounted in there? It's basically the shock pushes up on the suspension arm, down on the rail. That's what holds it up.
Okay.
The back, that's where the difference is. So we call this a linkage suspension. So this is a push-pull on the shock. So on a traditional snow bike suspension, the suspension's going to push. It's going to be like the front. It's going to push from the rail up on the arm.
Like from there up.
Yeah, but it would be in the back. Like, look at your timber sled or your Yeti. That's how they'll be built.
And this is kind of helpful, yeah, when he's pushing.
So the spring rate of this shock is transferred to the back of that rear suspension arm. So your load and dampening is at the back of the suspension arm versus directly into the shock.
Okay, and what's the advantage of that?
Well, the advantage is we have a linkage system that we can now tune. So that as it rotates, it will pull on the front of the shock, and on the top where it's bolted, it'll push on the shock. So it's a push-pull system. So with that, we get a longer rear track shock. And so it's hard to see it actually working, but the advantage is we curve the compression rate. So it's aired up really stiff right now. That's how we send them out. And so what happens is the top of the stroke is really soft, and the bottom of the stroke, we can tune how bottom out resistant it is. So you can't do that with a vertical shock, but you can with a linkage by tuning the length of the linkages. So we get a soft suspension that's very bottom out resistant.
You're talking about these right here, right?
Yep. Those both ends of those are on a bushing. And as the back arm pivots up, it pulls on the bottom of that bracket, which pulls on the linkage.
Got it.
This is really no different than a snowmobile. You look at any snowmobile, it's going to have this type of suspension in it.
Why did your other, like the original timber sled design, then not have that?
Because it's much cheaper to build.
Got it.
This is a lot of extra parts in it. It's a lot of extra parts. It's not easy, and it's not easy to figure out. But those vertical shock suspensions, they ride really good. These ride really good too, but they ride really good for such a simple, lightweight suspension. So yes, we could save about 3 pounds in this suspension by going back to that, but you also get a more heavy front end from those kind of suspensions. So it's the reason the snowmobile manufacturers won't use 2 vertical shocks, because the back shock is constantly pushing down in the snow more than a linkage suspension is. We can make the linkage much softer at the top of the stroke.
Got it.
So it aids in how light this kit rides on the ski. So
that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, translate that to the snow bikers that don't know what you're talking about, in terms of shocks.
The one thing that we missed at the very beginning of this conversation is what this kit's all about. And what it's all about is improved ride and handling. And what that means is it drives down the trail better. It is much lighter on the ski. It's about 50% lighter. And when I mean lighter on the ski, I'm not talking about popping a wheelie. I'm talking about how heavy it feels when you steer the handlebars when it's planted in the snow. So you're going uphill, downhill, down a trail. This thing has easy steering. It feels like power steering. It's so easy.
Yeah, and one thing you talked about that's important, I know you mentioned this to me, was not having to put, stiffer springs or get a trio shock or do anything different to your forks.
Yeah. So this suspension, one of the other things that aids in that is this suspension is mounted on an average of 5 inches farther forward. The axle's not forward, just the suspension is. So if you look at that rear, if you look at the top of that rear track shock and line that up with the motorcycle, it's lined up right with the back of the seat.
Wow. Yeah. So it's all tucked basically further up.
Go get your tape. Go get your tape measure and start measuring bikes. It'll be 5 inches.
Wow.
And so that aids in how much load the front track shock carries. And then you couple that with a very tunable rear track shock that doesn't try to push weight onto the front end, and you suddenly have a bike that rides incredibly light on the front end. And because of that, it doesn't drive the front end into the bumps or into a ravine nearly as hard. You go into a steep ravine that you would normally bottom your forks on, you get about halfway in and that suspension just takes right over. It does not bottom your forks out, not like ever.
Dude,
I mean, you'll ride all day and you'll realize at the end of the day, you haven't even used the last 3 inches of your fork.
Damn, I cannot wait.
So much lighter on the ski. That is one thing you have to get used to with this. A lot of guys are used to bowling them around, and this thing is like fingertip, sensitive.
Yeah, that translates to
difference.
Yeah, it translates to less energy having to turn and
less fatigue to your body. But you also curve your riding style a little bit. So you take all these things, you couple them together, but this thing has a fair amount of rear steer too. So the narrow rail, the forward mounting suspension, the lightweight front, you go around a corner and the back end doesn't slide. It just comes around and you get this less G's feel in a corner. And now instead of trying to hold the handlebars into a corner, you almost have a tiny bit of counter steer. And now you're in the sweet spot of your steering in a corner. And so your options to go from the outside of the corner to the inside of the corner on a hard packed trail, you can do this. Where before it's like you're pretty stuck to being on the outside of the corner all the time.
Yeah, the narrow rail system, I mean, I know I've been riding that now for several years. That's amazing. It makes such a difference.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for just a sec.
Yeah, what's the distance here?
Well, I don't know what it is. Get a tape measure. It's 5 3/8 inches between the rails, and a normal snowmobile or older snow bike is going to be 8 5/8 inches. So 5 3/4.
12-inch track.
Yeah, 12-inch wide track.
Yep.
So the narrow rails, you don't want to run loose tracks with a narrow rail. So we started to talk about that earlier. You see when you lean it, that they may not, I mean, I don't know how tight that track is, but you really start to pull the Hyfax away from the clips.
Right.
And you don't want that because that catches on the snow and the ruts and it can hinder your performance. So you need to keep the track tight and you need to keep it so it stays with the Hyfax.
Got it. Damn, 2.5 inches. Holy cow.
So the other thing with narrow rails, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but the track, the alignment on the track's not as good with these.
What do you mean?
It tends to walk side to side because your wheels in the back are really close together. And your upper idler wheels aren't between two alignment nubs. So you don't have any track alignment on those upper idler wheels. That's with every snow bike that runs a narrow rail. They all have the same problem. And the track, it tends to walk back and forth. And so a tight track just helps it stay aligned.
Okay.
They don't ever have a problem like they rub or anything. Well, they do rub sometimes, but yeah, it's just not a good thing. So you don't want to run this track super loose. And you think that you're gaining power by loosening your track.
Yeah.
I mean, if you over tighten your track, maybe you're losing some power, but not really. And there's another thing about the mountaintop kit is when the suspension goes down, we allow the track to get slightly looser. So we don't have any track bind.
Okay.
Most of the kits, they tighten the track because they use the track to prevent the suspension from bottoming out. Yeah, see how floppy it gets?
Yeah. Huh.
So that's another reason not to loosen it. Now it might tighten it if you're just pushing on the back, but if you compress the suspension like you land, it goes looser. Not a lot looser, just a tiny bit looser.
Right. So that way it's not binding.
Yeah, and all that's dictated by the angle of the front arm. So if you wanted more tension, you'd run like a longer front track shock.
Got it. Wait, so with this design here, would there be any reason to change the shocks?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Making sure I'm tracking. So narrow rail system. Yeah, and then anything else you want to talk about with the rails here?
Not really. We can talk about the shocks if you like. I'm sure there's questions on that suspension and how it works, but when our website's up, it'll be it'll explain it.
Yeah, and I'll put links to, like, I'm sure you'll have different videos and whatnot. I'll put links to that on the YouTube video, so if people are wondering, go watch that. But talk through the shocks and why you chose these.
Oh, okay, yeah. So these are really high-end shocks. So these are float evol or float 3 evol internal bypass shocks. So the float chamber allows you to adjust basically your spring rate and preload, and it's infinitely adjustable like the in-frame shock. And the evol chamber adjusts your rate of compression. So if that lower valve there where the cap is, the lower cap, that's your main chamber. So that's like inside the float shock portion.
Got it.
And then there's a piston in there dividing the two chambers. And the top of the evol chamber, which is that little skinny tube,
this one
is another air chamber in there. So the more pressure you go and put in that, the stiffer the spring rate is. The more you put in the bottom chamber, or we call it the main chamber, it's like putting on a bigger spring with more preload.
Got it. So that's
what holds up your big
tunable
guy versus your extremely tunable, like infinitely tunable. I mean, it will be like as strong as a 300-pound spring and can go as weak as a 50-pound spring.
Damn. And obviously going lower, that'll help drop the kit down a little.
Yeah, so you can do the same thing with this, is you can just lower the air pressure. Now, a short person needs to weigh less, but let's say a big guy like me runs 80 and 80, and you could drop down to like, say, 60 or 70 in the front and as low as 50 in the rear. That's going to make a pretty soft suspension. So when you sit on it, it's going to squat down.
Got it.
And if you got a big guy, you can go, I mean, that's if you're trying to make the ideal suspension, or you can just set them a certain way and leave them that way. You can also tune, because the linkage suspension has an extremely strong bottoming resistance. You can also tune this shock to be skis planted or skis up in the air. So
make it rowdy.
Yeah, so 80 psi in this main chamber here is like a good crossbreed between ski on the ground and ski in the air, or 60 psi is ski in the air nonstop. Especially if you got a heavy guy pulling on it. But you can go down to 60 and it's still pretty bottom out resistant.
And is transitioning on this pretty easy as well, I imagine?
Transitioning what?
Just in terms of lifting the front end up.
Oh yeah, so it lifts the front end on demand.
That's
so
awesome.
it gets traction when it's climbing because it's a very good geometry suspension, so it transfers weight. But you ask it to wheelie, and it wheelies, and it'll even wheelie going down the hill if you pull back. And if you watch our videos that we'll be putting out, you'll see it. Right, it's pretty quick. So everybody, I mean, again, I'm trying not to talk about my old company, Timber Sled, but what's the difference between a Riot and a mountaintop? And they are two different animals. A Riot wheelies, and you feel like you're being pulled up by the ski. It feels like somebody's pulling you up in the air, and it pulls these big wheelies, and it comes up pretty slow. This feels like you're being pushed into a wheelie. So you lean back and give it gas, and it feels like you're being pushed into a wheelie, more like a tire, I think. And so it will ski lift quicker, but maybe not as far on some maneuvers. Now, as far as going up and doing pirouettes in the snow, it'll do them exactly the same. But say you're going side hill, or you're going even down a hill, there's two logs. and you want to skip the ski over the log so the ski doesn't go down between them, and they're 12 feet apart, you can skip the ski over stuff with very little throttle input.
Yeah, and anybody who's
mostly
going downhill,
it's mostly rider input.
well, and what you said right there, anybody who's going downhill that on a snow bike, that can be very challenging when you come to a log like that and you're like, oh, I'm gonna eat it, because you can't bring that front end up very well going downhill. So that's huge.
Well, same thing crossing a creek. You go down a hill and there's a creek, a ravine that you have to cross, and you can just and just pop right over it. And then when you're climbing a hill, you can sit on the seat and just climb the hill, and it'll keep the ski down, and you'll go up the hill. It climbs incredible traction out of this suspension and track.
Yeah, talk about that, because you said, I remember you were telling me in terms of shifting your body weight, just 12 inches, you can basically change what, 20% you said, up or down on the front end.
Well, you can just, I mean, obviously the softer you go on this rear track shock, the more it's going to pop a wheelie.
Right. No, I'm just speaking specifically about transitioning your body front to back, pushing down, having more ski pressure.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, the less pressure you have in the rear track shock, the less weight you have on the front end.
Yep.
And that's if you don't adjust the front track shock. So
yeah,
you didn't adjusting the rear. Now, if you wanted to lower it down and make it softer, you would adjust both shocks.
Yep, that makes sense.
Because the front track, think of it this way: the front track shock is carrying the load.
Mm-hmm.
It holds the weight of you and the motorcycle up.
Yep, that makes sense. Anything else on the suspension you want to talk about?
Well, I could talk all day if you want, but it's a good geometry suspension. So the front arm and the rear arm are the same length. That creates the absolute most premium transfer for traction.
So you're talking about this arm and this arm?
Same length, yep.
And why specifically is that?
Because when they get down to a certain angle, the rail and the arm push back at the same rate.
Which means what?
Means more of a level rail transfer, which puts the traction to the ground. Now, if you're a snowmobiler, you'll understand this, but the snowbikers haven't quite caught up to this.
Well, and that's
exactly,
I want to kind of dumb some of this down to not only for myself, because I'm kind of dumb with the lingo of some of this, but there's so many new people getting involved, especially dirt bikers that have zero snowmobile experience. And so I want to dumb it down where it's like, hey, the reason why, like you said, having these the same length is it squats down, more traction to the ground. That makes sense.
Yep. More traction, more climb, more better transfer. So when it hole shots better, like say you're in a tree hole or you're going to go around a tree and you need to punch it and go up, I mean, it gets it on real fast.
Yep, that makes sense.
It doesn't spin the track and then gets traction. I mean, it just gets traction because it just sticks the load right onto the rail, and makes the track get as much traction as it possibly can.
Copy. So do you want to chat about, I mean, this is pretty standard.
Those are anti-stab wheels.
Yep.
They're a rubber wheel. The suspension arm actually bottoms onto those wheels, so we don't have any jounce bumpers. We don't need any jounce bumper because that wheel is rubber.
And what he's talking about for everybody listening, there's these on some of the other kits, you got these bumpers right here that everything will hit, your rails will hit. So you have none of those because you don't need them.
Yeah. And then the back shock is designed to airlock, so it doesn't need a bumper.
Got it. That's awesome. So all right.
And then, rear idler wheel. That's an 8-inch wheel on the back of that.
That one.
Yeah.
And what's
that's a little bit bigger diameter wheel.
I was gonna say, what's standard?
I don't know, 7-inch, I think.
Okay.
So it's just a little bigger, little less bend in the track. I don't know that there's any performance advantage. It does look cool.
Yeah, it does look nice, but no advantage that you're aware of.
Well, they say less circumference to bend the track around, the more power you get to the track, but
right.
I don't think that's really true. There's more track bind and stuff going on that make a bigger difference.
Yeah. Well, I think, did we miss anything on the bottom? Because I know everybody's waiting to hear about this track because this is obviously very unique. But anything else you want to talk about here?
I think I'm good there. I'm sure there'll be a
Yeah.
lot of questions, but
Yeah.
we'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
So roll it forward so you can get behind that thing.
Want to come roll it, Mike, or somebody?
Or just lift it forward over those cords. Put it to the front of those cords.
Mike's gonna roll it here for us. Maybe. There we go.
Spin it. Just spin it out of the way there. There we go. That's good.
Okay.
So get right behind it and look up inside there with your camera. All right. So this track is everything I've learned in track. That paddle's bent forward. That's just because it's been wound up in a bag.
Sitting. Yeah.
So we call this a 4-paddle design. So what that means is it takes 4 paddles to get from left to right. So that one, the one ahead of it, the one behind it, the one ahead of it to get to the other side. So it's 4 paddles. So like an old Yeti track is a 2-paddle design. A new Yeti track is a 3-paddle design. A timber sled's a 3-paddle design. Those all work really good also, but we can't copy those guys. So we went to the drawing board. All my experience building tracks, I've done a lot of generations of tracks. I start to understand things. And so what we have here is a big outside paddle. It's pretty stiff on the outside edge. And then we have these 2 inner paddles. And then you have a big outside paddle on the other side. So this track promotes really smooth rotation. It's very smooth down the trail. And in the powder, the smooth rotation promotes additional track speed because the paddles aren't thumping the ground. So it breaks the paddles up, puts more of them on the track, which is be different between like a mud terrain and an all-terrain type tire.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at this, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but yeah, how many paddles are on like a traditional snow bike typically, track?
Well, so if it's a 129 and it's a 2.86 track, so 2.86, there's 45 windows.
Okay.
Divide that in half because there's a paddle every other window divided by 2. So there's 22.5 paddles on the outside edge of that track, and there's 22.5 paddles on the inside. And so because it's a 129, it's what they call an odd window track. So somewhere on the track, there's an odd set of paddles.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll notice that on every snow bike track.
The first time I noticed that was last year, and I was like, what the hell's wrong with this track?
Well, if it was up to me, I'd have an even window. I'd have an even window track. And believe me, we have a new track coming out next year, and it is an even window track. It just promotes less weight and higher performance.
Nice.
So, but anyway, 2.86 pitch, 129 track. That's what you get. 22.5 paddles per row of paddles.
So,
right.
so talk through, more of this design. Why did you go with these are not 3-inch? And everybody's like, I need to be 3-inch. That's the only way to go. So talk us through that.
We are developing a 3-inch track. I'll start off by saying that, and we're not keeping it a secret because people need to know so that they can make their decision.
Yep.
This kit is designed to fit a 3-inch track. So you can put a timber sled 3-inch track on it, or you can wait till we have our own 3-inch track. But we learned a lot with this track. This is a very competitive track to a 3-inch track. Its design is literally the best snow bike track I have ever tested. And its smooth rotation promotes higher track speed. I am not lying to you. This track with all of its improvements to efficiency pulls a gear more than about anything out there. So you get on your 3-inch, you get stuck in first gear climbing the steepest section of hill, you will be able to keep this in 3rd gear. And if you have to drop the 2nd, I'll be surprised.
Damn.
And so there's a lot of conditions that the 3-inch is going to be better, but 90% of the year, this is, I wouldn't say it's better, but it feels good because it doesn't bog your motor out. You pull higher RPMs up the hill and you pull more track speed up the hill. So in 8 out of 10 cases, it out climbs the 3-inch because it doesn't, not because it has more traction, because it outspeeds it. So you're climbing up a hill and you're bouncing in the snow, and they're like in a dead heat, the 3-inch will feel more traction-y, like it'll like stop and go really good because it has so much traction. But as soon as the hillside smooths out and you're like side by side, it will just drive past it because of its speed, and you have to stop bouncing in the snow to be able to build that speed up.
The scales.
Right.
So it's kind of like a, I don't know, we call it hyper drive because, you know, it's got this like little trick up its sleeve that it can pull off if you get the right section of hill.
So talk to people who, because it's so funny, and everybody that's 3 inches is the only way to go. Talk through, you know, advantages versus disadvantages.
Well, so everybody wants a 3-inch, including me, and I'm working on it. It's just it's a scheduling thing with CAMSO. You know, you have to get on a schedule to do the engineering. It's a big process.
Yeah.
About a 2-year process.
Copy.
Because when we make this track, it's not that we're just molding a new tread pattern like we can with these 2.5-inch tracks. They're much simpler.
Oh, okay.
The 3-inch, basically the entire machine that makes the track has to be created. So it's the difference between, you know, 50, 60 grand and $750,000.
Yeah. Okay. I gotcha.
So that's why there's not more 3-inch tracks out there, is simply because of the cost. We're just sticking our neck out there and making it happen because we know this is what we have to sell, you know, Snowbike kits.
Yeah.
But we will have 2 very modern tracks. And so there is a place for this track, and you're going to learn what it is this year. So I want to talk about the design of the track a little bit, other than the paddles and all that. So this track is a new design track. It's a multi-durometer track. Now, multi-durometer tracks have always been a thing in the past, but and some aftermarket companies use that. But multi-durometer meant that the paddle was 2 different durometers. So all CAMSO tracks are an 80 durometer rubber. So what's different about this track is the belt there where you see the fish scales. That's 90 durometer.
You know, what's the deal with the fish scales too? That I haven't seen that.
That's just cool.
Yeah, I didn't know if
it's like a siped tire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, kind of a traction-y surface.
Yeah.
And it's just a good look, especially when you break up the track like this, a good even look. So just different. I can't say there's any massive improvement to it, but when tracks went to single ply to make them lighter, the paddle bends the base of the track. And so that's part of why the paddle folds over so easily on some tracks. So this track is a 90 durometer rubber. So it's a much harder rubber in the base of the track. And then that 90 durometer goes up the paddle about 1/8 of an inch at the base. And then the paddle's 80 durometer. So what we're trying to achieve with this is that the paddle flexes. The flex in the paddle gives the track lift in the snow, but it's not just folding the base of the paddle over, or the base of the belt over. So you get a stiffer belt and a paddle that flexes, and when it flexes, it does its job. If it folds over, it's not doing its job. We pick up a considerable amount of traction doing this because the paddle more does its job better than it normally would on a single ply track. Now, back in the old days, these tracks were 3-ply. And they had a ton of rubber in the base, but they were heavy. They were 39 to 40 pounds. You know, this track's only 34 pounds. So it's way lighter. And I'm talking about an old school track from 10 years ago. So just new technologies that we're being able to utilize. Now we pay more for this. This doesn't come cheap.
Of course.
So we pay a premium to have this multi-durometer thing going on, but we feel that we're getting a track that's extremely quality. It holds up, it lasts a long time. We have tracks here that we ran in the gravel all spring long and shale rock and stuff, and we put them back. We took our kits down and fixed them all up to make them look new, and we're still using the same track on those kits, so we didn't replace them. Because they didn't get cut up and they weren't chipped and having problems.
Got it. Well, Well, I think that might segue into, and I think the Penco crew is going to kick me out here soon. I might have to get the keys so I can stay longer, but I want to have time if they do kick me out. I know they close in like 10,
So we're to the
15.
point where we can move to the ski. So we can
That's
start
kind of
to
what
speed
I
through
was.
this.
That's what I was thinking, man. Is maybe this ski is freaking. It looks awesome. You want to start what, bottom first, top? Where you want to start?
Well, let's start with the top. So the ski is what we call a semi-parabolic ski.
Okay.
It's flat. So if you go from the width of the ski, so the center section is flat and the outer sections are rounded.
Yeah.
And then the ski is a little bit thicker. It's about a 3/8 of an inch thick, which is why we can get rid of all the ribs on the outside of the ski. So use a thicker ski. It's super strong because it's thick. It's flexible because it doesn't have too many ribs in it, so it absorbs bumps and dips and everything. So it acts like a suspension, like a flexi, like a Simmons flexi ski. So it doesn't have ribs on it, and it's round, and so it doesn't hold as much snow.
Yeah.
It's a half a pound heavier than like a Yeti and timber sled ski, but considering that ski is what we call an assembly instead of a piece of plastic with ski skags on it, that's pretty lightweight, you know. So we gain weight by making it thicker, but then we save weight by getting rid of all the ribs.
Yeah, and I noticed you have this. What is the?
So that's the name of the ski. So live keel ski. You can now flip it over if you like. Flip it around. So the live keel is that center keel. So that runner, that plastic runner that's bolted to the ski, goes down, and so that now it sits on those rubber bumpers.
I see that.
Yep, and
That's
now
cool.
it flexes side to side. So the idea is to mimic the feel of a tire. So a rubber tire that absorbs bumps and absorbs lean. That's what this does. So this is pure magic on trails, like hard pack.
And it looks like
pure magic.
It looks like it. And it looks like just this whole piece here you can replace.
Yeah. So in the springtime, you beat it up on the rocks, and your skis all beat up. Well, that thing takes the beating, and so you can replace it and get a brand new sliding surface on the bottom of your ski when you replace your ski skag.
I mean, people might not realize, but this is game changer. This is revolutionary.
It's game changer. So I don't know what the best thing to compare it to is. It's a rubber tire, but it kind of also acts like a skateboard truck. And so it's all about hard pack. It doesn't provide you any improvement in the powder.
Right.
It's only on hard pack that it's actually doing its job.
For anybody who rides trails or has to ride into a trail, which most of us do. Yeah, I mean, that's massive.
It's such a game changer. It's the difference between riding with pumped forearms down the trail to be able to ride with one hand, looking backwards at the guys behind you, and still be able to go around the corner without going in the ditch.
So it's perfectly centered.
Dude.
So one big advantage. Here's something you'll be able to relate to. So when you go down the trail and you got to go around a corner, you don't turn the handlebars. You just lean.
Yeah.
And it just goes around the corner without turning the handlebar. So when you turn the handlebar on a snow bike, that's when it gets all shifty and darty.
Yep.
With this, you just lean, and the further you lean, the more corner it goes around.
Yeah, because the whole thing's shifting.
Another advantage is we don't have metal going up the front of the ski. We've decided that is just a hindrance.
Where at? You're talking about up here?
Well, like, see where the center skag is?
Yeah.
No, go back. Most skags have metal that go up the keel, so it extends further forward. So that hits on rocks and stuff, and that's partly why you can bend something. So this plastic takes the beating, and then also the inside of that skag is now plastic, so it doesn't freeze. Snow doesn't freeze in it.
Yep.
And so in those certain weird conditions.
Damn.
So you get a bunch of benefits from it. Rebuildability.
I mean, this is like, people are going to be getting this ski. I mean, that's
so
pretty
this
much
ski bolts on any snow bike spindle. So it's just your traditional, any traditional snow bike ski all has the same mounting. So it's just a direct bolt on. You don't need to modify anything. You can just bolt it right on another kit. So the parabolic shape that I'm telling you about on the bottom, all that's doing is making it so our side keels don't hang down so far. So That's partly what makes a ski turn heavy, is those vertical walls of the outside keel.
Right.
So it still funnels the snow in, and the whole ski is just as deep as if it had a deeper keel on the outside edge of the ski. So, and then the skags, the outer skags, are much longer than they are on any other ski. So we use those as a tuning tool. So that, you see how they're multi-height?
Yeah.
So we can tune the ski to how aggressive it feels with those skags by changing the depth of the multi-height to just changing the overall, how far the skag hangs down.
That's freaking awesome.
So lot going on there.
You can get different ones there.
Yeah, we have optional ones.
That's
So those
freaking
are
cool.
what we call the middle size. So we have a lower. So less ski skag you would use for hard pack snow.
Right.
You get a considerable handling improvement with less ski skag. More ski skag, deeper snow. And then we also have, so we have a high, medium, and low on those outer skags that are multi-height, and then we have a high, medium, and low that are on non-multi-height. The multi-height does aid in how it corners on the trail.
Got it. What and I imagine those, you guys will have those out of the gate available.
Yep. Yeah, we'll have lots of them. They're heat treated steel. They're extremely hard. They're not carbide, but they are heat treated steel with about an 80 Rockwell hardness, which is hard, very hard.
Got it. That's freaking cool. So what do we got going on here in the front?
Okay, so the spindle, the biggest difference between this spindle and any other spindle is that it is entirely universal. There's no fitment parts required to install this spindle. So all the components that bolt to the bike, like where the axle bolts and where the fork clamps are, everything is adjustable to accommodate the width, the offset, the diameter of those parts. So that's the beauty of this spindle, is it's different. So the fork clamp comes in from the back side versus the side. So that bar that you see, the anodized aluminum bar, yep, that piece, we call that the spindle support bar.
Okay.
So that's like the backbone of the
one
assembly.
piece. Yeah.
And so they have that mounted on upside down.
Oh yeah.
There's a relief on the bottom side for your fork seal, so that needs to be 180.
Oh yeah, I can feel it there. Yep. I
yep,
see
and
it.
that notch that you see in that bar, that fits around your brake bracket on your fork.
That's freaking cool.
So those, okay, so here's the other cool thing is it comes with the fork guards. That's a standard option on the kit. It has these fork guards that are made out of aluminum.
I was gonna say these are not plastic. These are aluminum.
They're virtually indestructible. You can, when you put them on, you can just thump them with your fist, and they're just solid as a rock.
Dude,
they will
awesome.
support the weight of a bike tipping into a tree trunk without bending.
Damn.
So they're made out of 080 aluminum. Now, if you look in the inside of them, the fork clamp and around the perimeter of the fork guard is all relieved. You can see daylight through all of that stuff. You see the reliefs in the fork. So when the snow hydraulics into the bottom as you cycle your suspension, it pushes ice out the bottom of them. So it'll never wipe out your fork seal.
Oh, you're talking about like right here and stuff?
Yep, all around. It's all over.
Cool.
So all 360 degree, it's got reliefs cut in it to let the snow and ice through.
Dude, what's the retail on this? I mean, obviously this will all be
well,
released.
I don't know yet, but we do plan to have an accessory spindle, and we will offer 3 different option spindles, which will be 3 different lengths. So a long, a medium, and a high. This is the medium.
Different lengths for that way if you're shorter or whatever.
So to give you a comparison, our Snowbike kit in general and this spindle are 1.5 inches lower than on a timber sled. I don't know how much lower or different it is than a Yeti because I don't have one of those here to measure. So our kit does sit lower seat height wise. So we have a 37-inch seat height.
Got it.
On all bikes, we're using a stock seat, of course. And this spindle is our medium length spindle.
Okay. I'm tracking.
And that stud that you see on the front of that spindle is for a accessory wheel kit that we won't be selling. So Motion Engineering will have a wheel
Oh,
kit
that
for
right
these.
there. That's what you're talking about.
Yep.
Okay.
So it bolts right onto our spindle. But we also have some universal mounting points on the spindle for aftermarket wheel companies to utilize, and that's one of them right there.
Got it.
So we'll have our own wheel.
Freaking awesome.
Our wheel will go on the ski. And when it comes out, you'll see that it's a pretty unique wheel. So it's not just some clunky thing that we put together. It's a high-end, well thought out wheel kit that works on every single Snowbike ski, but it pivots and everything.
Got it. What else on this you want to cover, Alan?
Well, I just wanted to cover that it was a universal mounting. I wanted to show how the fork clamps bolted on from the rear versus the side.
Yeah, so what you're saying, for anybody who's not paying attention here, you don't need to buy a bunch of different mounting. There's no fit kit, right? There's no fit kit for the front.
There's no fitment kit for the front.
Dude, that's awesome.
And it looks really nice on the bike. Yeah. It looks like a factory part because it's got some body built into it. It is a welded aluminum spindle, so it's really lightweight, and it is a unibody, what we call a unibody design.
What have you guys found? Have you destroyed some?
Nope, haven't bent one yet.
Jeez.
I was hoping you were gonna. I've hit stuff, but I've never just hit like a Forest Service gate or something, which is what's gonna have to happen.
Yeah.
I was hoping maybe you'd do that for me.
No, I'll try my best.
But I've built a lot of spindles. I know what it takes to make them hold up, but you know what happens to it when it gets bent. I'm sorry, I haven't bent one, and I'm not going to sign up for that job. So eventually somebody's going to do it, and we'll probably give them a free spindle just for the thank you.
There you go. As long as you get it on video.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Well, this alone, I mean, that's awesome. This is game changer right here.
So just to give you an idea, I want to tell you about the weight of the kit.
Okay.
We talked about a lot of things. So the ski assembly is 19 pounds. Just to give you an idea, that's about 1 pound heavier than a timber sled ski assembly. I don't know what the Yeti is. I think theirs is about 19 or 19 and a half pounds.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
But that includes the fork guards. So that's a component nobody has.
Yeah, there you go.
And the graphics on the fork guards as well as the kit are something that you get to choose when you buy a kit, what color graphic you get. So that's what we call a white graphic. So if you have a KTM, you can put an orange graphic on, or you have a gas, you can put a red graphic on, or a Honda. So we have colored graphics. That's what jazzes up the kit. They come in black or black, whatever you want. And then you can choose the color or the graphic. So,
got it.
And then the rear is 110 pounds. That includes every part needed to install. So the chains, the strut rod, the fitment parts. So you're 110 pounds. You're actually 108 pounds, but we're calling it 110 because there might be some unknowns.
Just as a heads up, if my phone, it is charging, it says, but if it dies, I'm going to sign in from this other phone, just so you know, so you can stay on there.
Okay.
So 119, you said?
No, it's 110 pounds. That's the advertised weight.
Copy.
And then 19 pounds for the ski.
And then 19. Yeah. So what is that? 129 total? Am I right? Yes. 129, 130 pounds.
So everybody weighs their ski separate from their track. So if you're comparing, and most of the companies that have advertised weights, they're not weighing it with a fit kit either. So you have to add a 5 pounds to their weight for the fit kit. I don't know if that's everybody, but it certainly is with a timber sled, because they don't include the fit kit with the kit. You buy it separately.
Well, dude, you have changed the game once again. I mean, I don't even know what to say other than I really want to ride this kit. So I'm really looking forward to, as soon as the snow flies, and riding one of these. Yeah, we'll have one up here, obviously working with Penco. So people who want to try it, they can, come up to Montana, man, and rent one for a day, and you can get out here and rip and compare it and have fun. And I'll be riding it a lot, I'm sure. But dude, I just want to say, as just a snow biker, like, thanks, man. Thanks for like pushing the envelope and freaking getting after it and doing what you love. And I think that's what I know for me, it's like, this is what we're waiting for. This is the kind of thing we want to see, right? Is we want to see the envelope pushed.
Yeah.
Because we're all ready for it.
So let's chat just a little bit about the company. So I want to just make everybody understand that we're not some big outfit. You know, we're starting from rock bottom. It's Rush and I in here working 16 hours a day. We do the assembly. We talk on the phone. We do the emails. We develop the parts. He's a talented computer guy. I'm a talented product guy. We're a good match as far as our teamwork together. And so bear with us as we grow. We are starting at the bottom, but we don't have any intentions of staying here. So it's just where you have to start.
I have no doubt you will not be there. Yeah. And, you know, for guys like myself and Penco and the other dealers, I'm sure there's going to be a network of individuals helping and answering questions. I know I'm as available as much as possible, especially online. People have questions. And I mean, there's going to be a lot of info out here about these. I have no doubt, and a lot of cool videos, man.
Yep. So yeah, it'll take us a little time to get revved up and get all our stuff accumulated, but we're working every day on it, man. As long as we can stand it.
Yeah. Well, I'll be right there with you, doing as much as I can and helping out. So
I know you do. You're a hard worker.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, we'll have more for everybody listening, watching this. Like I said, we'll be doing a podcast here soon. So some more long form content and, hearing more about Alan's story and his upbringing and background. I'm excited for that stuff. So,
okay.
Any other parting words, Alan?
No, that was pretty much the long version of the kit. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you doing this and putting this information out. It's going to be helpful. I look forward to winter and riding and meeting a lot of customers as we get out there and ride.
Hell yeah.
But we're going to keep it fun. And fun is our job and your job. So
that's right.
Keep on keeping on, man. We love it.
Right, man. Well, thank you, Alan. And thanks, to Penco as well for allowing us to come in here and check this out. And stay tuned, guys, and make sure you go on the website. Just mountaintopsnowbike, right? .com.
Yep. So Penco, they'll be one of our, flagship premier dealers. So they sell all the brands, but they'll be selling our brand as well. That's why they have one of the first units there.
Hell yeah.
So I want to thank those guys for letting us do this.
Yep. Well, thanks, man. And thanks, Rush. I know he's back there working hard as well. So I'll let you guys get back at it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Alan.
All right. We'll see you.
Man. All right.
Peace out.